In this video, I will go over the Got It questions for section 4-4. So get out a different color pen and correct your Got It questions. Again, we're doing a proof, which is something you need to be able to do in this section, in this chapter. And I'll start with my given, that BA is congruent to DA, and CA is congruent to EA. Now, they've actually drawn that into the picture for us, which is nice. Okay, now our goal is to prove that angle C is congruent to angle E. Okay, now there's no way we can tell that just from the picture. What we will need to do is to prove that the two triangles are congruent, and then this should be true by CP/CTC. Okay, so let's think about why should these two triangles be congruent? Okay, which of our theorems and postulates could we use? Okay, now looking at this picture, one of the first things I notice is that these angles must be congruent to each other by, because they're vertical angles. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to say is that angle CAB is congruent to angle EAD, and the reason is they're vertical angles. All right, now looking at the picture, why should the two triangles be congruent? And the answer is the side angle side postulate. So CAB is congruent to triangle EAD by the side angle side postulate. Okay, so now that the two triangles are congruent, and we know that they're congruent, we can now say that angle C is congruent to angle E. And the reason for that is CP/CTC. Okay, so whenever you're asked to prove that that the two parts are congruent, you will frequently need to prove that the two triangles are congruent, and then you can say that statement by CP/CTC. Okay, this next one, again, we're given some information. We're given that AB is congruent to AC, and that's drawn for us on the diagram, and M is the midpoint of BC, and the reason is it's given. Okay, now before I jump into how to prove this, I'm going to think about my given. What does it mean for M to be the midpoint of BC? Well, it means it's right in the middle of BC. So what that means is that BM would be congruent to MC. And the reason for that is the definition of midpoint. Okay, draw that in my diagram. It's very helpful to always draw on your diagram so you can see where to go next. Okay, so I'm asked to prove that two parts are congruent. Okay, so almost always when that happens, I will prove that the two triangles are congruent and then say this is true by CP/CTC. So I need to ask myself, why are these two triangles congruent? Okay, and I notice that they're sharing a side. Okay, that they're touching on this side, and so it must be congruent to itself by the reflexive property. Again, whenever two triangles are touching each other like that, we will almost always use the reflexive property. So MA is congruent to MA by the reflexive property. Okay, so now that I look at this picture, and again, I've drawn on the picture as I've learned new things, I can now say that these two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Triangle ABM is congruent to a triangle in order ACM. And the reason is the side, side, side postulate. Okay. Okay. And so now that I know that these two triangles are congruent, I can say that angle AMB is congruent to angle AMC, and the reason is CP/CTC. And that's the end of the Got It questions for section 4-4.